The Battle of Stalingrad, which was fought from the 17th of July, 1942 to the 2nd of February, 1943, was a major battle on the Eastern Front of World War II, beginning when Nazi Germany and its Axis allies attacked and became locked in a protracted struggle with the Soviet Union for control over the Soviet city of Stalingrad, now known as Volgograd, in southern Russia. The battle was characterized by fierce close-quarters combat and direct assaults on civilians in aerial raids. The battle epitomized urban warfare, being the single largest and costliest urban battle in military history. It was the bloodiest and fiercest battle of the entire, and arguably in all of human history, as both sides suffered tremendous casualties amidst ferocious fighting in and around the city. The battle is commonly regarded as the turning point in the European theatre of World War II, as Germany's Oberkommando der Wehrmacht was forced to withdraw a considerable amount of military forces from other regions to replace losses on the Eastern Front. By the time the hostilities ended, the German 6th Army and 4th Panzer Army had been destroyed and Army Group B was routed. The Soviets' victory at Stalingrad shifted the Eastern Front's balance of power in their favor, while also boosting the morale of the Red Army. The Battle of Stalingrad, which was fought from the 17th of July, 1942 to the 2nd of February, 1943, was a major battle on the Eastern Front of World War II, beginning when Nazi Germany and its Axis allies attacked and became locked in a protracted struggle with the Soviet Union for control over the Soviet city of Stalingrad, now known as Volgograd, in southern Russia. The battle was characterized by fierce close-quarters combat and direct assaults on civilians in aerial raids. The battle epitomized urban warfare, being the single largest and costliest urban battle in military history. It was the bloodiest and fiercest battle of the entirety of World War II, and arguably in all of human history, as both sides suffered tremendous casualties amidst ferocious fighting in and around the city. The battle is commonly regarded as the turning point in the European theatre of World War II, as Germany's Oberkommando der Wehrmacht was forced to withdraw a considerable amount of military forces from other regions to replace losses on the Eastern Front. By the time the hostilities ended, the German 6th Army and 4th Panzer Army had been destroyed and Army Group B was routed. The Soviets' victory at Stalingrad shifted the Eastern Front's balance of power in their favor, while also boosting the morale of the Red Army.
The Extraordinary Life of Professor Vadim Medish. Professor Vadim Medish, born in Krasnodar, Russia, in 1924, grew up amidst a culturally diverse community nestled in the Caucasus region. His family history reflects this richness, as both Russian and German were spoken in their home. Medish's father, a biologist educated in Germany, dedicated his life to studying plant diseases at a local agricultural university. The onset of World War II would dramatically alter the course of Medish's life, forever intertwining his fate with the horrors of war. As the war escalated, the upheaval reached Krasnodar. Medish's father became a victim of the paranoia that gripped the Soviet Union during this tumultuous period. Wrongfully accused of collaborating with the Germans due to his German ties, he was imprisoned and likely perished during a chaotic evacuation of prisoners. This family tragedy marked a profound shift in Medish's life. Soon after completing high school, he was drafted into the Red Army in 1941. At just 17 years old, Medish found himself fighting in one of the war's pivotal battles, the Battle of Stalingrad. This 8-month-long siege was fraught with brutality, confusion, and desperation. After serving 6 months on the front lines, he was captured by the German forces. As a prisoner of war, Medish faced the grim realities of captivity, working on labour projects that involved converting Russian railway tracks to the German gauge. His proficiency in both German and Russian became a crucial survival tool. It not only allowed him to navigate the dangers of being a prisoner, but also secured his place in the Labour Battalion, where he contributed to the war effort by modifying essential infrastructure. As the tides of war turned, and the German forces began their retreat from Soviet territory in 1944, Medish experienced a shift in circumstances. Declared a potential traitor in his homeland due to his German heritage, he was integrated into the German army, serving under duress as they faced mounting losses. As World War II came to a close in 1945, Medish was eventually released from captivity. However, his return to a changed Russia, where suspicion against him loomed, was not possible. In search of a fresh start, Medish immigrated to the United States in 1949. Shortly after his arrival, he was once again drafted, this time to fight in the Korean War. With resolve and resilience, he navigated life in a new country, forging a path that allowed for healing and growth. Settling in Washington, D.C., Medish built a new life, marrying and raising a family. His son, who has followed in his father's intellectual footsteps as a writer, has taken it upon himself to chronicle Medish's life and his remarkable journey. Portions of his father's story have been published in prestigious outlets such as the Washington Post, showcasing the resilience of a man who endured so much. Today, Professor Vadim Medish represents a bridge between different worlds, embodying both the anguish of war and the hope for a better future. Residing in Washington, D.C., surrounded by his son and several grandchildren, he continues to reflect on his past, sharing his experiences to educate others about the complexities of war and the human spirit. His life, marked by trials and triumph, serves as a powerful testament to survival, resilience, and the enduring bond of family across generations. Vadim Medish's story is not just a narrative of conflict, it is a profound journey of identity, belonging, and the unyielding quest for peace, making him a vital part of the historical tapestry that shaped the 20th century and continues to influence the present. Vasily Zaitsev, the Sniper of Stalingrad. Vasily Zaitsev has become an iconic figure in the annals of World War II history. He is best known as a Soviet sniper during the Battle of Stalingrad in World War II. His story, while marked by individual skill and remarkable feats in the face of profound adversity, also serves as a reminder of the brutal, dehumanizing nature of war, a conflict that claimed millions of lives and left cities in ruins. Born on April 2nd, 1915, in the Ural Mountains of Russia, Zaitsev grew up in a modest family that depended on hunting and foraging for sustenance. He brought home his first hunting trophy at the age of 12, a wolf that he killed with a single bullet from his first personal gun given to him by his grandfather, a single-shot 20-gauge shotgun. His early life experiences in the wilderness fostered a familiarity with shooting and an acute awareness of his surroundings. In June 1941, Zaitsev was serving in the Soviet Navy as a clerk in Vladivostok when Germany invaded the Soviet Union in what was called Operation Barbarossa. Like many of his comrades, he volunteered for transfer to the front line out of a sense of duty to his homeland. He had attained the rank of Chief Petty Officer in the Navy and was assigned the rank of Senior Warrant Officer upon transfer to the Army. He was assigned to the 1047th Rifle Regiment of the 284th Tomsk Rifle Division, which became part of the 62nd Army at Stalingrad, on the 17th of September 1942. The Battle of Stalingrad was one of the deadliest confrontations of World War II, lasting from August 1942 to February 1943. The city, once a symbol of industrial strength, became the site of immense suffering as Soviet and German forces clashed in urban warfare that often devolved into chaos. The environment was characterized by destruction. As the battle raged, Stalingrad morphed into a devastated landscape of rubble and ruin, where close-quarters combat often eclipsed traditional warfare. Zaitsev's accuracy with a rifle led to him becoming a sniper. Utilizing the urban environment to his advantage, he adapted to the chaos surrounding him by mastering the art of concealment and ambush. Zaitsev's success was not merely due to his marksmanship, he was also an adept strategist, often outthinking his opponents. Zaitsev would conceal himself in various locations, for example on high ground, under rubble, or in water pipes. After a few kills, he would change his position or relocate. Together with his partner Nikolai Kulikov, Zaitsev perfected his hide and sting tactics. One method was to cover a large area from 3 positions with 2 men at each point, a sniper and a scout. This tactic, known as the Sixes, is still in use today by Russian forces and was implemented during the Chechen Wars. As Zaitsev arrived in Stalingrad, he was thrust into a nightmarish landscape. He quickly learned to navigate the brutal realities of combat, using the remnants of the devastated city for concealment. His talent as a sniper enabled him to take aim at enemy soldiers, but each pull of the trigger came with the echo of suffering, reminders of lives being cut short. Zaitsev's reputation grew as he achieved significant success, reportedly claiming over 200 enemy targets. His ability to eliminate high-value targets disrupted the German command structure and instilled fear among enemy troops. Stories of his feats spread among Soviet soldiers, elevating him to the status of a national hero. Yet, this success was not a source of pride. Rather, it underscored the grim nature of his reality. Each interaction with the enemy was laced with loss and guilt, amplifying the emotional burden that accompanied the act of taking a life. The psychological toll of surviving in such a brutal environment weighed heavily on Zaitsev and his comrades. It is believed, though not confirmed, that Zaitsev was engaged in a tense standoff with a rival German sniper at Stalingrad. The 2 snipers stalked one another across the scarred landscape, each vying for superiority. The intensity of the encounter exemplified the psychological and strategic dimensions of warfare. Zaitsev ultimately outsmarted his adversary and emerged victorious, further boosting his reputation. The conditions in Stalingrad were harsh and unforgiving. Soldiers faced not only the enemy, but also starvation, extreme weather, and the constant threat of death. Zaitsev endured these hardships alongside his fellow soldiers, each day marked by uncertainty and fear. The turning point in the battle came with a Soviet counter-offensive, which ultimately encircled the German Sixth Army. While this military maneuver marked a significant strategic victory, it was also accompanied by staggering casualties on both sides. Zaitsev continued to fight at the Battle of Stalingrad until January 1943, when a mortar, or possibly a landmine, injured his eyes. He recovered, and on the 22nd of February 1943, Zaitsev was awarded the title Hero of the Soviet Union. Zaitsev recruited and trained other marksmen during his service in Stalingrad. He returned to the front and finished the war at the Battle of Seelow Heights in Germany with the military rank of captain. Zaitsev emerged from the battle as a recognized figure, representing a complex mix of survival and loss. He participated in post-war engagements, sharing his experiences in hopes of fostering a narrative of resilience rather than glorifying the act of killing. After the war, Zaitsev transitioned to life as a military officer and teacher. He authored his memoirs to recount the realities of his experiences, opting to focus on the profound impacts of war rather than seeking personal glorification. His legacy is multifaceted. While his skills were remarkable, his story also serves as a somber reminder of the costs of conflict, the loss of life, and the emotional scars left on those who survive. He passed away on December 15, 1991, but remains a symbol of courage and skill, celebrated by historians and military enthusiasts alike. Vasily Zaitsev's experiences during the Battle of Stalingrad illustrate not just individual bravery, but also the tragic complexity of war. His legacy is intertwined with the memories of suffering and loss, underscoring how conflict can distort human existence. Rather than lionizing his actions, his story invites reflection on the consequences of warfare and the enduring scars it leaves on humanity. In the end, Zaitsev represents not a hero of valor, but a witness to the painful realities that should never be forgotten. His legacy endures not only through his remarkable feats as a sniper, but also as a reminder of the countless individuals who faced unimaginable hardships during one of history's most brutal conflicts. As long as the story of Stalingrad is told, so too will the story of Vasily Zaitsev, the sniper who became a legend. Friedrich Paulus, the rise and fall of a German general at Stalingrad. Friedrich Paulus, a German general during World War II, is best remembered for his pivotal role as the commander of the Sixth Army during the infamous Battle of Stalingrad. His leadership and the circumstances of his surrender marked a turning point in the war, forever etching his name in the annals of military history. Born on the 23rd of March 1890 in Würzburg, Germany, Friedrich Paulus grew up in a military family and developed an early interest in the armed forces. He joined the German army in 1910 and served with distinction during World War I, where his organisational skills and leadership abilities quickly garnered attention. By the end of the war, he had risen through the ranks, serving in various staff positions that further sharpened his strategic acumen. Following Germany's defeat in World War I, Paulus remained in the newly formed Reichswehr, the Weimar Republic's military. Despite the limitations imposed by the Treaty of Versailles, he continued to build his career, demonstrating his competence in planning and logistics. His experiences during this period laid the groundwork for his future assignments during World War II. As World War II erupted, Paulus's talent did not go unnoticed. He played a significant role in the German invasions of Poland and France, earning a promotion to Major General. In November 1941, he was appointed as commander of the Sixth Army, with the ambitious task of capturing Stalingrad, a strategic city on the Volga River. He was given the position of Major General when Field Marshal Walter von Reichenau, Paulus's patron, became commander of the entire Army Group South. Paulus, at that time, had never commanded a larger unit than a battalion. However, Paulus only took over his new command on the 20th of January, 6 days after the sudden death of Reichenau. This left him on his own and without the support of his more experienced sponsor. Alone in his duties, Paulus led the drive on Stalingrad that summer. His troops fought Soviet forces defending Stalingrad for over 3 months in increasingly brutal urban warfare. In November 1942, 1 year after his promotion to Major General, the Soviet Red Army launched a massive counteroffensive named Operation Uranus. Despite finding himself surrounded by an entire Soviet army group, Paulus did not request to evacuate the city. Completely surrounded, Paulus followed Adolf Hitler's orders to hold his positions in Stalingrad under all circumstances. 1 month later, Operation Winter Storm was launched, a relief effort by Army Group Don, a short-lived army group under the command of Field Marshal Erich von Manstein. Following von Manstein's orders, Paulus prepared to break out of Stalingrad. In the meantime, he kept his army in fixed defensive positions. Manstein told Paulus that the relief would need assistance from the 6th Army, but the order to initiate the breakout never came. Paulus remained firm in obeying the orders he had been given. Manstein's forces were unable to reach Stalingrad on their own, and their efforts were eventually halted due to Soviet offences elsewhere on the front. Kurt Zeitzler, the newly appointed chief of the Army General Staff, eventually convinced Hitler to allow Paulus to break out, provided he continued to hold Stalingrad, an impossible task. For the next 2 months, Paulus and his men fought on. However, the lack of food and ammunition, the equipment losses, and the deteriorating physical condition of the German troops gradually wore down the German defence. With the new year, Hitler promoted Paulus to Colonel General. Refusing to capitulate, Paulus stated, "What would become of the war if our army in the Caucasus were also surrounded? That danger is real. But as long as we keep on fighting, the Red Army has to remain here. They need these forces for a big offensive against Army Group A in the Caucasus and along the still unstable front from Voronezh to the Black Sea. We must hold them here to the last so that the Eastern Front can be stabilised. Only if that happens is there a chance of the war going well for Germany." On the 7th of January 1943, General Konstantin Rokossovsky, commander of the Red Army on the Don front, called a ceasefire and offered Paulus's men generous surrender terms, including normal rations, medical treatment for the ill and wounded, and permission to retain their badges, decorations, uniforms, and personal effects. As part of his communication, Rokossovsky advised Paulus that he was in an impossible situation. Paulus requested permission from Hitler to surrender. Even though it was obvious the 6th Army was in an untenable position, the German Army High Command rejected Paulus's request, stating, "Capitulation is out of the question. Every day that the army holds out longer helps the whole front and draws away the Russian divisions from it." After a Soviet offensive overran the last emergency airstrip in Stalingrad on the 25th of January, the Soviet command again offered Paulus a chance to surrender. Paulus radioed Hitler once again for permission, telling Hitler that collapse was inevitable. Paulus stressed that his men had no ammunition or food, and he was no longer able to command them. He also said that 18,000 men were wounded and were in immediate need of medical attention. Once again, Hitler rejected Paulus's request unequivocally and ordered him to hold Stalingrad to the death. On the 30th of January, Paulus informed Hitler that his men were only hours from collapse. Hitler responded by handing out field promotions to Paulus's officers, an attempt to restore morale and bolster their will to hold their ground. Most significantly, he promoted Paulus to Field Marshal, the same title held by Walter von Reichenau just over a year before. But the title came with a morbid implication. In deciding to promote him, Hitler noted that there was no known record of a Prussian or German Field Marshal ever having surrendered. The message was clear. If Paulus allowed himself to be taken alive, he would shame Germany's military history. Paulus was to commit suicide. Paulus and his staff surrendered on the morning of 31st of January 1943. The events of that day were recorded by Colonel Wilhelm Adam in his personal diary. January the 31st, 1943, 7 a.m. It was still dark, but day was dawning almost imperceptibly. Paulus was asleep. It was some time before I could break out of the maze of thoughts and strange dreams that depressed me so greatly. But I don't think I remained in this state for very long. I was going to get up quietly when someone knocked at the door. Paulus awoke and sat up. It was the HQ commander. He handed the Colonel General a piece of paper and said, "Congratulations, the rank of Field Marshal has been conferred upon you." The dispatch came early this morning. It was the last one. One can't help feeling it's an invitation to suicide. However, I'm not going to do them such a favour, said Paulus after reading the dispatch. Schmidt continued, "At the same time, I have to inform you that the Russians are at the door." With these words, he opened the door, and a Soviet general and his interpreter entered the room. The general announced that we were his prisoners. I placed my revolver on the table. "Prepare yourself for departure. We shall be back for you at 9 o'clock. You will go in your personal car," said the Soviet general through his interpreter. Then they left the room. I had the official seal with me. I prepared for my last official duty. I recorded Paulus's new rank in his military document, stamped it with the seal, then threw the seal into the glowing fire. The main entrance to the cellar was closed and guarded by the Soviet soldiers. An officer, the head of the guards, allowed me and the driver to go out and get the car ready. Climbing out of the cellar, I stood dumbfounded. Soviet and German soldiers, who just a few hours earlier had been shooting at one another, now stood quietly together in the yard. They were all armed, some with weapons in their hands, some with them over their shoulders. My God, what a contrast between the two sides. The German soldiers, ragged and in light coats, looked like ghosts with hollow, unshaven cheeks. The Red Army fighters looked fresh and wore warm winter uniforms. Involuntarily, I remembered the chain of unfortunate events which had prevented me from sleeping for so many nights. The appearance of the Red Army soldiers seemed symbolic. At 9 o'clock sharp, the HQ commander of the 6th Army arrived to take the commander of the vanquished German 6th Army and its staff towards the rear. The march towards the Volga had ended. Paulus's surrender marked a significant turning point in the war, as it was the first major defeat of the German army and a serious blow to Nazi morale. It also symbolized a shift in the momentum of the war in favor of the Soviet Union. On the 2nd of February 1943, the remainder of the 6th Army capitulated. Upon finding out about Paulus's surrender, Hitler flew into a rage and vowed never to appoint another field marshal again. In reality, he went on to appoint another 7 field marshals during the last 2 years of the war. Speaking about the surrender of Paulus, Hitler told his staff, "In peacetime Germany, about 18,000 or 20,000 people a year chose to commit suicide, even without being in such a position. Here is a man who sees 50,000 or 60,000 of his soldiers die defending themselves bravely to the end. How can he surrender himself to the Bolshevists?" During his captivity, according to General Max Pfeffer, Paulus said, "I have no intention of shooting myself for this Bohemian corporal." Paulus also forbade his soldiers from standing on top of their trenches in order to be shot by the enemy. Shortly before surrendering, Paulus sent his wedding ring back to his wife on the last plane departing his position. He had not seen her since 1942 and would never see her again, as she died in 1949 while he was still in captivity. After his capture, Paulus was held as a prisoner of war by the Soviets. Throughout his captivity, he reflected on the events that had transpired and became increasingly critical of the Nazi regime. Upon his release, he settled in East Germany, where he lived until his death on February 1, 1957, in Dresden. In his later years, Paulus published writings that detailed his experiences during the war, offering a valuable perspective on the strategies employed and the realities faced by soldiers. His memoirs provided insight into the complexities of warfare and the psychological toll it exacted on commanders and troops alike. Friedrich Paulus remains a complex figure in military history. Some view him as an able commander caught in a no-win situation, while others criticise his execution of the campaign and his decision to surrender. His experiences at Stalingrad not only highlight the devastating impact of war, but also serve as a reminder of the consequences of strategic miscalculations. His writings and the lessons learned from his command continue to be studied by military historians and students of warfare, ensuring that his legacy endures as a cautionary tale of ambition, strategy, and the harsh realities of battle. Friedrich Paulus's life is a testament to the tumultuous times of World War II. His rise through military ranks, the challenges he faced at Stalingrad, and his reflections on warfare paint a vivid picture of a soldier caught in the depths of one of history's most brutal conflicts. As we continue to study the events of this era, Paulus's story serves as an enduring reminder of the complexities of leadership and the often unpredictable nature of war. The Death Railway, a historical journey through Thailand. The Death Railway, officially known as the Thailand-Burma Railway, was constructed during World War II to facilitate the movement of Japanese troops and supplies from Thailand to Burma, now Myanmar. Despite its initial military purpose, the railway has become a symbol of the immense human suffering endured by the forced labourers who constructed it. This tragic chapter in history continues to resonate today, attracting tourists and historians alike who seek to understand its impact and legacy. The construction of the railway began in 1942 under the orders of the Japanese military, who were seeking an alternative supply route to bolster their campaign in Southeast Asia. The railway would ultimately span over 415 kilometres, approximately 258 miles, connecting Ban Pong in Thailand to Tan Biuzayat in Burma. To meet enormous deadlines, the Japanese military recruited prisoners of war from allied nations, including British, American, Australian and Dutch soldiers, as well as an estimated 200,000 Asian labourers, including forced labourers from Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia and Korea. The construction of the Death Railway was fraught with peril, harsh conditions and suffering. Workers endured grueling hours under the tropical sun with insufficient food and medical care. Disease, malnutrition and rampant mistreatment led to a staggering death toll. It is estimated that around 90,000 Southeast Asian labourers and up to 16,000 Allied POWs lost their lives during its construction. The term Death Railway is derived from these staggering mortality rates, and the railway has, since then, stood as a stark reminder of the brutality of war and the depths of human cruelty. The railway features several significant parts, including the infamous Hellfire Pass, a cutting through solid rock that stands testament to the difficult conditions faced by those who ventured to carve the railway through rugged terrain. Today, Hellfire Pass is a poignant memorial, with museums and memorials honouring the lives lost during its construction. Another notable feature is the bridge over the River Kwai, which became famous after being depicted in the 1957 film The Bridge on the River Kwai. The bridge is a testament to engineering under duress and serves as a significant reminder of the sacrifices made during its construction. Today, the Deaf Railway is more than just a remnant of World War II. It has transformed into a site of remembrance. The Thai and Burmese governments, along with various organisations, have worked to preserve the memory of those who suffered through education and memorials. The railway attracts tourists who wish to pay their respects and to understand the impacts of war. The Erawan Museum, Hellfire Pass Memorial Museum, and the various cemeteries located throughout the region serve as sites of reflection and education. In modern times, discussions surrounding the Deaf Railway have prompted broader conversations about war, memory, and reconciliation. The ongoing effects of war and human rights abuses continue to echo, making this subject highly relevant even decades after the events. Additionally, the Deaf Railway has become a symbol of resilience, both of those who suffered and of the communities that remember them. It serves as an educational tool, emphasising the importance of history and the need to ensure that such atrocities are never repeated. The Deaf Railway stands as a significant yet sombre chapter in the history of World War II and the collective memory of Thailand and its neighbouring countries. It serves as a reminder of the atrocities of war, the value of human life, and the necessity for remembrance and education. As visitors walk along its remnants, they are encouraged to reflect on the sacrifices made and to carry forward the lesson that peace should always prevail over conflict. Essential IELTS enrichment, linking the past and present. Introduction. The ability to connect historical events or ideas from the past with current situations is a valuable skill in IELTS writing and speaking. It demonstrates critical thinking, contextual understanding, and the ability to develop nuanced arguments. Let's look at how the video on the Deaf Railway accomplishes this, and how you can apply similar techniques in your own work. Historical background. In the transcript about the Deaf Railway, the speaker discusses the historical background, its construction during World War II, the suffering of labourers, and its origin as a military project. Then they connect this past to the present by highlighting how the site now serves as a memorial and educational resource. For example, today the site serves as a reminder. It prompts broader conversations about war, memory, and reconciliation. These phrases show how the past's significance endures into the present, influencing current attitudes and remembrance practices. Use of time markers. Words like today, currently, and now establish the present context. We can use time markers to bring the audience back to the present day, adding a sense of legacy to the writing. Legacy refers to the long-lasting impact of particular events and actions that took place in the past or of a person's life. For example, this tragic chapter in history continues to resonate today, attracting tourists and historians alike who seek to understand its impact and legacy. Here we can see the use of a time marker, today, and how the events that happened in the past have left an indelible mark on history. Discussing legacy. Describing how the site is preserved or commemorated links historical suffering to ongoing efforts for remembrance. Today, the Deaf Railway is more than just a remnant of World War II. It has transformed into a site of remembrance. The Thai and Burmese governments, along with various organisations, have worked to preserve the memory of those who suffered through education and memorials. Sentences like these show a sense of reverence and respect for the past, whilst also informing us of the continuing efforts to preserve and learn from the events that transpired. You can also see the use of the time marker today. Highlighting continuing impact. Mentioning how the site encourages reflection or education demonstrates the ongoing relevance of past events. The railway attracts tourists who wish to pay their respects and to understand the impacts of war. The Erawan Museum, Hellfire Pass Memorial Museum, and the various cemeteries located throughout the region serve as sites of reflection and education. You can see that this paragraph uses the present simple tense to show that people coming to pay their respects is a regular occurrence. Drawing broader themes. Connecting specific historical facts to universal themes like human cruelty, memory, and reconciliation bridges the past and present. It is estimated that around 90,000 Southeast Asian labourers and up to 16,000 Allied POWs lost their lives during its construction. The term Deaf Railway is derived from these staggering mortality rates, and the railway has, since then, stood as a stark reminder of the brutality of war and the depths of human cruelty. These sentences use specific examples to draw attention to universal themes of brutality and cruelty. It also uses the present perfect. The railway has, since then, stood as a stark reminder, in order to demonstrate that even today, these cruelties have never been forgotten. How you can do the same in your writing. Start with the past. Begin by describing a historical event, fact, or situation clearly and accurately. For example, the Deaf Railway was constructed during World War II to facilitate the movement of Japanese troops and supplies from Thailand to Burma. Use linking phrases. Incorporate phrases such as today, currently, and modern times or nowadays to transition to the present. For example, in modern times, discussions surrounding the Deaf Railway have promoted broader conversations about war, memory, and reconciliation. Show the impact. Explain how the past influences or relates to current issues, attitudes, or practices. For example, the ongoing effects of war and human rights abuses continue to echo, making this subject highly relevant even decades after the events. Highlight change or continuity. Discuss what has changed since the past or what has remained the same. For example, to talk about change, we might say, despite its initial military purpose, the railway has become a symbol of the immense human suffering endured by the forced labourers who constructed it. To talk about continuity, we might say, this tragic chapter in history continues to resonate today, attracting tourists and historians alike who seek to understand its impact and legacy. Connect to broader themes. Introduce discussions about lessons learned, moral values, or societal development. For example, it serves as a reminder of the atrocities of war, the value of human life, and the necessity for remembrance and education. Examples: historical background and present-day reflection. Link to the past. The railway was built during World War II by forced labourers, and thousands of lives were lost. Link to the present. Today, the site serves as a memorial to those who suffered and lost their lives. The speaker moves from describing the past events, construction and casualties, to its current significance, a memorial. This transition shows how history is remembered and honoured today. Legacy and educational purpose. Link to the past. The remains of the railway are preserved as a reminder of the atrocities committed during the war. Link to the present. Visitors come here to learn about the past and reflect on the importance of peace. The speaker connects the historical atrocity to its ongoing educational function, emphasising that the site now plays a role in promoting awareness and preventing future suffering. Historical impact and contemporary values. Link to the past. The construction was a symbol of wartime brutality. Link to the present. In today's world, it reminds us of the need to uphold human rights and prevent such cruelty. This example shows how a historical event, a symbol of brutality, informs current moral values and societal priorities. How to link the past and present in your own writing. Use similar transition phrases. Although it happened many years ago, the historical event continues to influence. Today, the site stands as a testament to. This historical episode reminds us of. The legacy of this event persists in. Connect the facts to broader themes. This history underscores the importance of peace in modern society. The suffering experienced then highlights the need for compassion today. Show change or continuity. While the purpose of the railway has changed from a wartime project to a memorial, despite the passage of decades, the memory of these events remains alive. By analysing the examples from the transcript, you can see how to effectively link past and present in your own writing. Using these methods, you can learn how to develop more cohesive, insightful essays and speeches. Make sure you use specific examples, transition phrases, and thematic connections to demonstrate understanding of history's relevance today and how historical events relate to contemporary social issues. This skill not only enhances your coherence and cohesion, but also demonstrates critical engagement and depth of thought with your topics, a key to achieving a high score in IELTS writing and speaking. Once upon a time, in a small village, a curious boy named Sam wandered into the woods. He often explored the nearby forest, but that day was different. As he was walking deeper into the trees, he saw a glowing object lying on the ground. He picked it up and realized it was an ancient amulet. Fascinated, he remembered the tales his grandmother had told him about magical artifacts. Excitedly, he decided to bring it home. However, when he returned, he discovered that his village had changed. It had transformed into a bustling town. Sam was feeling shocked and wondered what happened. He was thinking about the adventures he would have in this new world. Long ago, he had been wishing for something extraordinary to happen, and now it seemed like his dreams had come true. That night, he lay in bed, dreaming about the adventures that awaited him in the morning. This part of the story uses the simple past tense. For example, Sam wandered into the woods. The simple past tense describes actions that were completed at a specific time in the past. It is appropriate here as it sets the main narrative and indicates events that happened sequentially in Sam's story. This story is set in the past, and this part of the story has been completed, so we can use the past simple tense. We are also describing things Sam regularly did. For example, he often explored the nearby forest. This next part of the story uses the past continuous tense. For example, as he was walking deeper into the trees. The past continuous tense describes actions that were ongoing in the past. In this case, we're describing an ongoing or long action, walking, that was interrupted by another short action. He saw an object. In this instance, we can use the past continuous to describe the long, ongoing action of walking, and the past simple to describe the action that interrupts, when he saw the amulet. We can also use the past continuous to describe the amulet, which was glowing and presumably had been glowing for a long time. This next part of the story uses both the simple past tense and the past perfect. The simple past tense, he remembered the tales, he decided to bring it home. Well, these actions are quick and happen sequentially, or one after the other. First, he remembered, then he decided. You may also notice that bring does not change to brought. This is because decided to bring counts as one single action made up of two different verbs, and so the second verb, bring, does not change. We can also see the usage of the past perfect. For example, the tales his grandmother had told him. So the tales were told to Sam long before any of this happened, so we're referencing a point in the past that existed long before this story began. In this part of the story, we can see both the simple past tense and the past perfect tense. So the simple past tense, when he returned, he discovered, these actions are quick and again happen sequentially or one after the other. First, he returned, then he discovered. The past perfect tense, for example, his village had changed, it had transformed into a bustling town. Well, the past perfect tense indicates here that an action was completed before another past action. So it shows that the transformation of the village occurred before Sam's return, providing context and clarity regarding the sequence of events. In this part of the story, we can see the usage of the past continuous tense and the past simple tense, which are often used together. With the past continuous tense, we have Sam was feeling shocked. He was thinking about. So the past continuous tense describes actions that were ongoing in the past. In this case, we are describing an ongoing or long action, feeling. There is also another action occurring in Sam's mind, thinking. Both of these actions are happening at the same time, and so we need to use the past continuous tense to indicate that they're both happening simultaneously. We can also see the usage of the past simple tense. For example, Sam wondered what happened. This indicates that Sam briefly wondered about what happened. It was something that he thought about and then stopped thinking about. This is different from the continuous actions of feeling and thinking, which he continues to do for a long time. In this next part of the story, we can see the usage of the past perfect continuous tense and the past perfect tense too. So the past perfect continuous tense, for example, long ago he had been wishing for something extraordinary to happen. In this instance, the past perfect continuous tense emphasizes the duration of an ongoing action that preceded another past action. In this case, it highlights that Sam's desire for adventure was a persistent wish leading up to the moment he found the amulet, enriching the character's background and motivations. We can also see usage of the past perfect tense. For example, his dreams had come true. This sentence shows the relationship between his dreams, which had existed up until this point, and this particular time in the story. He had been wishing or dreaming for something exciting to happen for a long time, and now, at this point, it seemed to have happened. At the end of the story, we can see the usage of the past simple tense combined with the past continuous tense. So with the past simple tense, he lay in bed, this sentence talks about an action which is now complete. We could use the past continuous tense for this sentence, of course, and say he was lying in bed, dreaming about. But because this is the end of the story, it's more appropriate to end with a past simple tense verb combined with the past continuous tense to allow the reader to envision a future for Sam, whilst also providing a sense of finality to the story. The past continuous tense, dreaming about, shows the relationship between his dreams, which had existed up until this point, and this particular point of time in the story. So he had been wishing or dreaming for something exciting to happen for a long time, and now, at this point in the story, it seemed to have happened. The final sentence ends the story nicely because it allows the reader to think about what might happen to Sam next. In conclusion, using different past tense forms adds depth to storytelling by providing context, clarity, and continuity. The mix allows the reader to grasp the timeline of events and understand the character's motivations, emotions, and the significance of past experiences. The story effectively uses each tense to convey a rich narrative, allowing for a more immersive reading experience.
Irregular verbs in English from espressoenglish.net. Did you know that about 70% of the time when we use a verb in English, it's irregular? Irregular verbs can make you go crazy, but in fact, they follow some patterns. In this lesson, you'll learn groups of irregular verbs that will help you remember them better. The first group is irregular verbs with all three forms identical. These verbs are the same in the present, past, and past participle. One example is put. Present. I always put the milk in the refrigerator. Past. Yesterday I put the books in my backpack. The present perfect uses the past participle form. I've already put the documents in the mail. Other verbs with all three forms identical include bet, burst, cost, cut, fit, hit, hurt, let, put, quit, set, shut, split, and spread. The next group is verbs with identical present and past participle forms. The only different form is the past. Come, came, come. Become, became, become. Run, ran, run. A number of irregular verbs have n in the past participle. These can be divided into 4 subgroups, with o in the past and past participle, with o in the past only, verbs with the past form ending in ew and the past participle in own, and other. Subgroup 1. Break, broke, broken. Choose, chose, chosen. Forget, forgot, forgotten. Get, got, gotten. Speak, spoke, spoken. Steal, stole, stolen. Wake, woke, woken. Wear, wore, worn. In this subgroup, the vowel changes to o in the past and past participle. Subgroup 2 has o in the past but not in the past participle. Drive, drove, driven. Ride, rode, ridden. Rise, rose, risen. Write, wrote, written. Notice that the sound of the I changes from the present to the past participle. The present is drive, and the past participle is not driven, but driven. Subgroup 3. Verbs ending in EW in the past and OWN in the past participle. Fly, flew, flown. Grow, grew, grown. Know, knew, known. Throw, threw, thrown. Finally, we have subgroup 4, other. These verbs have n in the past participle, but don't appear to follow any other pattern. Bite, bit, bitten. Hide, hid, hidden. Eat, ate, eaten. Fall, fell, fallen. Give, gave, given. See, saw, seen. Shake, shook, shaken. Take, took, taken. Another group of irregular verbs is verbs with pronunciation changes. For example, long E to short E. Keep, kept, kept. Sleep, slept, slept. Feel, felt, felt. Bleed, bled, bled. Feed, fed, fed. Meet, met, met. Lead, led, led. Another group has EA pronounced differently from the present to the past and past participle. Deal, dealt, dealt. Mean, meant, meant. Read, read, read. Hear, heard, heard. Another group is when the long I changes to OU. Bind, bound, bound. Find, found, found. Grind, ground, ground. Wind, wound, wound. Short I can change to U. Dig, dug, dug. Stick, stuck, stuck. Spin, spun, spun. Sting, stung, stung. Two very common verbs, sell and tell, become sold and told in the past and past participle. Finally, we have the verbs with ought endings in the past and past participle. This can be spelled O-U-G-H-T or A-U-G-H-T, but the pronunciation is the same. Bring, brought, brought. Buy, bought, bought. Catch, caught, caught. Fight, fought, fought. Seek, sought, sought. Teach, taught, taught. Think, thought, thought. Remember that the G is silent in these verbs. Verbs with 3 different vowels. In this group, the vowel changes from I to A to U. Begin, began, begun. Drink, drank, drunk. Ring, rang, rung. Shrink, shrank, shrunk. Sing, sang, sung. Sink, sank, sunk. Spring, sprang, sprung. Swim, swam, swum. Finally, we have the completely irregular verbs. These verbs don't follow any specific pattern, so you just need to memorize their past and past participle forms. The verb to be is am, is, or are in the present, was or were in the past, and been in the past participle. Do, did, done. Go, went, gone. Have, had, had. Make, made, made. Thanks for watching English Tips from Espresso English. If you liked this video, please share it.
And now we'll take a look at the past tenses, first focusing on the past simple tense. Here, the past simple tense is used to express completed actions in the past, whether the past be a few seconds ago or whether many years or ages ago doesn't matter. To make positive sentences, we have our subject, and the subject could be anything from I, you, we, they, it, he, she. And now we conjugate. We change our verb, most often by adding ed. For the negative sentences, rather than changing the verb, we add the auxiliary verb. In this case, the auxiliary verb is do. So I've changed do to did to indicate the past, and it results in a sentence structure such as I did not work. Now did not is the full form. Obviously, we can contract this into didn't. Here we have did I work. Again, you can see the inversion of the position of the auxiliary verb and the subject to help us create our question. When we use did, we can use it for any of the subjects in our sentence, from I or he or she, etc. In terms of spelling these conjugated verbs, of course there are some issues that we need to have a look at, especially when considering some patterns. So again, we have our y changes to dropping the y and adding IED. And when we have a consonant vowel consonant, we double the consonant in question and finally add ed. These aren't irregular verbs, they're just irregular spellings for some verb conjugations. Our irregular verbs change their form altogether. So a few examples would be changing to was or were, depending on the subject of the sentence, go to went, have to had, give to gave, write to wrote. As previously mentioned, the usage for the past simple tense is when you want to talk about completed actions in the past at a definite time frame. So we have sentences like Mark worked last night. He worked in the past. When was it? Last night. We can also ask questions. When did Mark work? Although the time isn't mentioned in the question, what we're implying is the time will be mentioned in the answer. And by saying when did Mark work, we're indicating that it is in the past rather than saying when does Mark work, which would bring us back up into the present. Now let's have a look at the past continuous tense. This tense is used to indicate that a certain action was in progress at a particular time in the past. We form the positive form by using our subjects, the auxiliary verb to be, plus the verb plus ing, also known as the present participle. So it results in sentences such as, he was cooking last night, or we were cooking last night. In order to form the negative sentence for the past continuous, we add the word not in between the past form of the auxiliary verb to be and our main verb, which here is cooking. So of course we have, he was not cooking last night, and we were not cooking last night. In order to form the question form of the past continuous tense, again we're going to invert a subject and the auxiliary verb. So we start our question with was or were, depending on our subjects, and we keep our present participle form of the verb, which is our main verb in the question. So, was he cooking last night? Or, were you cooking last night? The usage for the past continuous tense is expressing actions in progress at a time in the past. So one example could be, I was cooking at 6 p.m. last night. I was cooking. It was an action that began, occurred, and finished at a particular point in time in the past, 6 p.m. last night. Now, I could also say, I was cooking when you called me. It's the continuation of an action that happened at a particular time. That particular time needs to be conjugated into the past simple tense, as it wasn't continuing,
would follow under the pronoun